What if I told you that almost everything around you right now, the language you speak, the roads you drive on, the laws you live by, the way you trade goods and ideas was shaped not by modern governments, but by empires that rose and fell thousands of years ago? That your daily life is literally a product of decisions made by rulers who died before electricity, before the internet, before the printing press. Sounds impossible, right? But stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to look at history in a completely different way. I'm talking about the empires that didn't just conquer land, they rewired human civilization itself. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we dive deep into history, power, and the hidden forces that shaped the world you live in today. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a video, because trust me, this one is going to blow your mind. Let's start at the beginning, not just any empire, but the one that may have invented the very concept of empire itself. We're talking about Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, and specifically the Akkadian Empire under Sargon of Akkad around 2334 BCE. Before Sargon, the world was a patchwork of city-states constantly at war with each other. Sargon looked at that chaos and said, "No, there is another way." He didn't just conquer his neighbors, he unified them. He created a central administration, standardized weights and measures, built postal routes, and established a common language for trade and governance. The man essentially invented bureaucracy, and love it or hate it, that idea of centralized power organizing diverse peoples under one system became the template every single empire after him would follow. You cannot talk about Rome or Persia or China without tracing a direct line back to what Sargon started. Now fast forward a few centuries, and we arrive at the Persian Achaemenid Empire. And this one is severely underrated in Western history books. At its height, under Darius the Great and Xerxes, the Persian Empire stretched from Egypt and Greece all the way to northwestern India. We're talking about the largest empire the world had ever seen, up to that point, covering around 5.5 million square kilometers and ruling over nearly half the world's population. But here's what makes Persia genuinely revolutionary. They weren't brutal overlords. They were administrators. Cyrus the Great, the founder of the dynasty, issued what historians consider one of the earliest human rights declarations, allowing conquered peoples to keep their religions, their customs, their local leaders. He freed the Jewish people from Babylonian captivity, an act so profound it's recorded in the Bible. The Persians built the Royal Road, a 2,700-kilometer highway connecting the empire that allowed messages and goods to travel at unprecedented speeds. They created a model of multicultural governance that, frankly, the modern world is still struggling to get right. But if you've heard of any empire in this video, it's probably Rome. And yes, Rome deserves every bit of that reputation and then some. At its peak, the Roman Empire controlled around 5 million square kilometers and a population of roughly 70 million people. But the numbers don't even begin to capture the impact. Rome gave us concrete. They gave us arches and aqueducts. They gave us a legal system. Roman law is literally the foundation of legal codes in France, Spain, Italy, Portugal, and every country those nations ever colonized, which means Roman law influenced the legal systems of Latin America, parts of Africa, and beyond. They gave us the calendar we still use today. July, named after Julius Caesar. August, named after Augustus. The Romance, languages, Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Romanian all evolved directly from Latin, the language Roman soldiers spread across Europe. When Rome fell in 476, See, it didn't disappear. It fragmented into DNA of Western civilization. Now here's where most Western history classes hit the brakes, but we're not stopping there. Because while Rome was crumbling in the West, something extraordinary was being born in the Arabian Peninsula. The Islamic caliphates, beginning with the Rashidun in the 7th century and reaching their golden age under the Abbasid Caliphate, produced one of the most remarkable intellectual explosions in human history. Baghdad became the intellectual capital of the world. Muslim scholars didn't just preserve Greek and Roman knowledge. When Europe had descended into the Dark Ages, they expanded it. They invented algebra. The word algebra comes from the Arabic al-Jabr, from the mathematician al-Khwarizmi, whose name literally gave us the word algorithm. Muslim scholars made foundational advances in astronomy, medicine, chemistry, and philosophy. The numbers you use every day, 1, 2, 3, those aren't Roman numerals. Those are Hindu-Arabic numerals, transmitted to Europe through Islamic scholars. The Islamic Golden Age kept human civilization's intellectual flame alive during centuries when it might have otherwise gone dark. And we cannot talk about empires that changed the world without confronting the most terrifying and misunderstood empire in history, the Mongols. Genghis Khan and his descendants built the largest contiguous land empire ever to exist, stretching from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe. The Mongol conquests killed an estimated 40 million people. Some historians believe they reduced the world's population by as much as 10%. That is a scale of destruction almost incomprehensible to the modern mind. Cities were wiped from the map. Ancient irrigation systems in Persia were demolished, turning fertile farmland into desert that hasn't fully recovered to this day. But here's the paradox. Once the Mongols conquered, they created the Pax Mongolica, a period of relative peace and stability across the largest land mass ever unified. Trade flourished along the Silk Road like never before. Ideas, goods, and diseases traveled faster than at any point in history. The Black Death, which killed 1/3 of Europe's population, spread along those very Mongol trade routes. And so did paper money. And so did gunpowder. And so did the idea that distant civilizations even existed. Then there is the British Empire, the empire on which the sun literally never set, controlling at its height around 24% of the world's land surface and 1/4 of the world's population. The British Empire is complicated in a way that makes historians argue constantly, and rightfully so. On one hand, the British spread the English language, which is now the global language of science, business, aviation, and diplomacy. They spread common law, parliamentary democracy, and railroads across continents. On the other hand, the British Empire was built on the exploitation of colonized peoples, on slavery, on the extraction of resources from India, Africa, and beyond that, kept those regions impoverished for generations. The Bengal famine of 1943 killed between 2 and 3 million people under British rule. The transatlantic slave trade, in which Britain was a major participant, forcibly displaced millions of Africans and created a wound in human history whose effects are still being felt today. The British Empire didn't just shape geography, it created the inequalities, the borders, and many of the conflicts that define the 21st century world. So what do all these empires have in common? What's the thread that connects Sargon of Akkad to Queen Victoria? Every single one of these empires rose because they offered something, a solution to chaos, a route to prosperity, a system of order, and they fell the moment the cost of maintaining that system outweighed the benefits. Every empire believed it was permanent. Every empire was wrong. The Romans thought the eternal city would last forever. The Mongols thought divine mandate granted them the world. The British convinced themselves that empire was a civilizing mission. And yet every single one crumbled, leaving behind not their glory, but their legacy, the languages, the laws, the infrastructure, the ideas, the scars. Here is the most important takeaway from everything you just heard. We are not post-empire. We live inside the ruins of these empires every single day. The borders of the Middle East, drawn by British and French diplomats after World War I, are at the root of conflicts happening right now. The reason English is the language of global commerce is a direct result of British imperial power. The reason algebra exists in your math class is because of Islamic scholars translating and expanding ancient knowledge. You are not separate from history. You are the product of it. And that right there is why I am obsessed with this stuff, because understanding where power came from, how it was built and how it collapsed, gives you a lens to understand the world that most people simply don't have. These weren't just kings and battles. These were systems of human organization that shaped every corner of the planet, and we are still living in their aftermath. If this video opened your eyes even a little bit, do me a favor, share it with someone who you think needs to hear this. History is not boring. History is literally the explanation for your present. And if we understand it, maybe, just maybe, we can do a better job of shaping what comes next. Drop a comment below and tell me which empire you think had the biggest impact on the modern world. I read every single comment, and I want to know what you think. If you want to go deeper, I've got a whole playlist on ancient civilizations linked right here. Go watch it. Your brain will thank you. And until next time, keep asking questions, keep digging deeper, and I'll see you in the next one.